Hello, people. Hope you're well, and welcome to the first edition of what is called Thursday Thoughts, a little quick show where I just go through some of the MMA news that's going on at the moment. So please make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and leave your comments. Going to be speaking about Charles Do Bronx Oliveira, speaking about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and who he would like to fight after fighting Joaquin Buckley, and then also going to be speaking about the possibility of Petr Yan versus Figueiredo in the December pay-per-view. So let's get on with it, guys. Charles Oliveira hasn't fought since he lost a decision victory to Arman Sarukian. So before that, he actually lost his title and was scheduled to fight in the rematch against Islam Makhachev. However, went down with an eye injury, got that bad cut over his eye. Remember, Dana was not too happy. In at short notice came Alex Volkanovski and lost via head kick to Islam Makhachev. Makhachev then went on and fought Poirier in what was a fantastic fight and got a submission victory. And then we are still waiting for Charles to get back in the octagon. And it looks as though he's not the only one. Well, we're not the only one who are hungry to see Do Bronx fight again. Again, made no secret about it. I love MMA, love UFC, love most of the fighters, but at lightweight, Do Bronx is my favorite lightweight. I think he's extremely exciting, very rarely in a boring or a dull fight. And I'd love to see him back in octagon. But the question is, what is next for Charles and who does he fight and what are his aspirations going forward? There was talk of him moving up to 170, which on the sound of it is exciting. It's fun. It's a new division. It's fresh faces, fresh competition. But I also look at his frame, his physique. I don't know if he would compete very well at 170, given that there are some very, very big guys in that weight class. You look at people like Garry and Shavkat, even Leon Edwards, all massive welterweights. Kamaru Usman, another one. These guys walking around at around 200 pounds. I don't think Charles walks around at that sort of weight. And if he does, he's cutting a hell of a lot. Then aspirations at 155, and I think he does. I think everyone thinks Charles is a lot older than he is because he came to the UFC so young. But when you actually look at what he can do in the lightweight division and you look at where he still sits in the rankings, the fact that he's only really lost to, well, not really, only lost to Sarukian and Islam Makhachev over the last few years says a lot. Wins over Poirier, wins over Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, when Tony Ferguson was still the guy or seen as one of the guys. Charles Oliveira is an absolute problem, and I think he should stay at 155. And I also do think he should try and pursue that title. Shout out to Jamie Phillips in the chat. Go and subscribe to Jamie's channel. Shout out to Theo. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Scance TV as well. I do think he should stay at 55. Now, the question becomes, who does he fight? Because he beat Michael Chandler to win the belt. So I'm just going to throw out the rankings and see who's in there and who's available to fight, because I think that's always an important thing to do when it comes to this. And Charles, in my opinion, isn't going to want to fight someone who's too low down, but he may have to fight behind him because everyone in front of him is either tied up or they looks like they're getting a title shot. So at 155, it's just Arman Sarukian at the top of the division behind obviously the champion. Now, Arman Sarukian's fighting Islam Makhachev when Makhachev's fit, so we know that's not going to happen. He's beaten Gaethje and he beat Poirier. He beat Gaethje in the first round. Gaethje's coming off the back of a really, really devastating loss to Max Holloway. So I personally don't think that fight makes a lot of sense. Dustin Poirier coming off the back of a fantastic win over Islam Makhachev. So a fantastic performance over Islam Makhachev, but losing nonetheless. You look at the situation with Dustin Poirier, and Dustin looks like he may only want to fight big names and money fights. Now, Charles is a big name, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a money fight. So I don't know if he takes that fight. Then you look at number 5. Number 5, for me, is very intriguing. And now I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite. I would prefer, I think, to see Dan Hooker in there with Justin Gaethje. Now, I know that doesn't sound fair because Hooker just come off a win and Gaethje hasn't. And I just said I wouldn't like to see Oliveira in there with Gaethje because it doesn't make much sense. But the reason I can change the narrative there is because Oliveira's already fought Gaethje and beat him destructively. Hooker and Gaethje haven't fought, and let's be real, Hooker and Gaethje are probably two of the most violent individuals, not just in UFC, but in life in general. Then you go to number 6. Chandler's obviously waiting on Conor. Dariush was scheduled to fight ages ago, and he's already beaten Dariush. Then you've got Gamrot, who just moved down to 8. I'm not sure why Gamrot's moved down so much. I know he lost to Hooker, but Chandler hasn't fought in 2 years, and Dariush hasn't fought in a while. So again, the rankings are what the rankings are. Moicano's fighting BSD. That's 11v12. Dos Anjos, don't really think it makes much sense. Jalen Turner could be a fun fight. I don't know if he'd want to fight number 14. And then Paddy Pimlet. Again, money fight. Don't think it makes all the sense in the world. So I'm going to be honest. Hooker's probably the best person for him to fight. Doesn't get him a title shot straight away. Maybe if he gets a great win. But I do think it's got to be Hooker next. Just by the way the division's laid out. Because he's not going to get the Sarukian or Islam fight next. As I said, Gaethje's coming off the back of a loss. Poirier's coming off the back of a loss. And I don't think Poirier is going to want to fight Oliveira. I don't think Gaethje should be getting that Oliveira fight. It's got to be Hooker, right? If you capitalize on Hooker's sort of momentum at the moment and his winning streak and how reinvigorated he looks, how exciting he looks again, I think it's got to be Dan Hooker. So, guys, I'd love to know your thoughts. Should it be Dan Hooker versus Oliveira next? Should it be Oliveira moving up to 170? I don't like the idea, but some of you might. So let me know in the comments below. Who does Charles do Bronx Oliveira fight next? And will he ever capture or recapture the lightweight championship? Let me know in the comments, please, people. On to another fighter, and that is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So Stephen Thompson is scheduled to fight Joaquin Buckley in October, I believe, in what will be a fantastic stand-up fight. I don't see either of these guys going for takedowns. Buckley can mix that in, but I think Buckley's the sort of guy who will stand and trade with a striker. And if there's one thing we know about Buckley, he carries great speed and immense power. So that's going to be an exciting fight. However, instead of speaking about Buckley, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has come out and said that he'd love to face Ian Garry, but he says he doesn't know if Garry would give him the chance. Now, when he phrased it like that, automatically some MMA fans will go, well, no, he'd be giving Garry the chance. But I mean, technically he's not. And again, I'll bring up the rankings just to prove this. Gary's on a winning streak, a long winning streak. And while the fights that Gary's having might not be the most exciting, they might not be the best of fights, he's still winning. And I think something has to go into the credibility of that. It can't always be exciting. Winning in MMA is the most important thing. I think sometimes we lose sight of that as fans, and sometimes the promoters do as well, but that's for a different video. Ian is currently ranked at number 7. Wonderboy is currently ranked at number 9. So while they're not far apart in the rankings, Ian Garry has been quite clear in saying he wants to fight people above him in the rankings. Now, he did take the MVP fight. Kudos to him because he didn't have to do that. And MVP was number 12 at the time, and he took the fight. He took the fight and he won. Again, wasn't the most exciting fight. Now, the way you have to look at it, if you're Garry, obviously Gilbert Burns and Shaw Brady are fighting, so they may swap positions potentially if Brady gets the win there. Ian Garry, for me, if I'm him, I'm looking at the Colby Covingtons, I'm looking at the Kamaru Usmans, I'm looking at the Jack Della Maddalenas, especially if Rakhmonov is the next to get the title shot. I'm not looking at Wonderboy Thompson for the pure fact of it doesn't move me up in the rankings. It doesn't move me any closer to getting a title fight. So why should I do it? Now, from a fan standpoint, again, Wonderboy is not the fighter he used to be, but he's still exciting. You saw that in the Kevin Holland fight. And shout out to Scants and shout out to Theo in the comments. I was going to suggest this. MVP versus Wonderboy, regardless of the result. I don't think they fight each other. They've come out on record and said they're pretty good friends, but MVP's also shut it down, saying he doesn't believe it will be an exciting fight. He thinks it will almost become a point scoring fight where they'd almost cancel each other out because they'd be too hesitant. I refer back to Darren Till versus Wonderboy. This is when Darren Till was full of confidence, still unbeaten, looked like the guy who was gonna take the welterweight division to the next level. And his fight with Wonderboy was very lackluster. Why? Because they cancel each other out at a point. It's almost like two great wrestlers fighting each other. The fight's not going to necessarily be as entertaining because they'll cancel each other out. So I'd watch. Obviously, I'd watch the fight between MVP and Wonderboy. I just don't know if it'll be that exciting. I think everyone thinks of the flashy kicks and the flashy punches and all these different techniques, but I think ultimately because there'd be they wouldn't be fighting to strike against each other. They'd be fighting with the knowledge of, if I throw this punch or this kick, then they're going to react like this. So I'm going to now throw this technique behind it to try and counter what they may do. I think it becomes a very cagey affair and doesn't necessarily work. So in terms of Wonder Boy, I think he has to focus on the Buckley fight. I think he has to win that fight for him to have any of these conversations. But that's the main fight he needs to worry about. And even if he wins that fight, Buckley, I still don't think he gets the fight with Ian Garry. And if I'm going to be honest, I'd like to see Ian Garry fight up the rankings. I think he's earned it. I think he deserves it. Whether you like him or not, that's a different conversation. But I think he deserves to be in that conversation now with a top 5 fighter. So we'll see what happens there. And then finally, last topic of discussion here is Petr Yan has called out Figueiredo. That is Davidson Figueiredo, who has been climbing up the bantamweight division. The former flyweight champion is ranked number 5 currently in the bantamweight division, again on a winning streak as well. Now, this fight's very intriguing. So Petr Yan is coming off the back of a win. However, he did sustain an injury, hence why we haven't seen him. Petr Yan is currently ranked number 3 in the rankings, whereas Davidson Figueiredo is currently ranked number 5. Corey Sandhagen's just lost to Umar Nurmagomedov, who, in my opinion, will get the title shot after Sugar Sean faces Merab at the Sphere. I love the idea of this fight. Petr Yan versus Figueiredo is a great fight on paper. Both exceptionally good strikers, both very good grapplers, and both in the top 5 of the bantamweight division, which is a killer division. Sign me up for this fight. Sign me up. In December as well, absolutely perfect. And it makes so much sense for the division because, look, the winner of Sugar and Merab, barring there being a controversial decision, will go on to fight Umar. That means the winner of Davison versus Yan could effectively fight the winner of Umar and the winner of Merab and Sugar Sean. Now, it still leaves Corey Sandhagen around, but I think Sandhagen versus someone like a Cejudo, a big name, could work really well. Someone like Sandhagen versus Jose Aldo could work really well. Sandhagen, unfortunately, is out of the running at the moment. He is, because he just lost. But I'll be honest with you, if Figueiredo doesn't fight Yan, then Figueiredo versus Sandhagen would be a great fight as well. Ultimately, what I'm saying is the bantamweight division is lightning and it is red hot. And I'd like to see it. I'd like to see Petr Yan versus Figueiredo, 3 versus 5. One of the fights, in my opinion, that would, put in place a number 1 contender in the division. Sign me up, please, people. So I'm going to leave it there, people. It's just a short one, just a little catch up with what's going on at the moment. If you haven't already, please do smash that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. I am aiming between now and the end of the weekend to do a video on Dana White and John Jones. I know MMA Guru's done a video, but I want to go into a bit more depth and just kind of piece together the story, because I think there's so many things that are going unnoticed here as to why Dana's glazing John Jones, why John Jones won't commit to fighting Tom Aspinall, why Dana White is saying that Aspinall doesn't deserve anything, why Dana White is going back and forth with Kevin Iole. Big up Kevin Iole as well, standing on business, 10 toes down, about John Jones. So I'm going to chop up that. I'm going to go into some of the stuff that Jones has said in the past, some of the stuff Dana said in the past. Why didn't Jones fight Francis Ngannou? I'm going to really take a deep dive into the subject because I think it's needed. And yeah, go from there. So please look out for that video when it drops. Please smash the like button, switch on notification bell. And until we see you again on the Sanderson Show, thank you for watching, listening. Go and subscribe to Luke Tanner MMA. Go and subscribe to Jamie Phillips Football Chats. Go and subscribe to Coppish as well. Big up everyone and speak soon. Take care.